Am I the asshole for only paying for one of my daughter's weddings and down payment? Original post. So I 50 male and have 3 kids. Sarah 35 female, Jessica 25 female, and Ben 23 male. My wife and I had Sarah when we were both 16. It wasn't easy, but with both our parents' support, we could finish college while we raised her. When it was time for her to go to college, we didn't have the money to help her. So she took out loans and paid for them herself. We learned from our mistakes and started saving for her siblings, Jessica and Ben, who got around a 100K college fund and had no debt. Through all of this, Sarah never complained. She finished her education, got a fantastic job, and could repay the loans in just 3 years while staying with us to save as much as possible. She has also helped us a lot with babysitting her younger siblings and has always been selfless and helped out in any way she could, maybe even to a fault. So when she told me 5 years ago she was getting married, I talked to my wife and told her how bad I felt we never did anything for her and that I wanted to give her the inheritance I got from my grandmother, which was around 50K, to help pay for her wedding and down payment on the house. Luckily, my wife agreed, and even though she didn't really need it, I know it meant a lot to her. The issue is this: Jessica's getting married next year and had assumed we would plan a similar gift for her. She was quite surprised when I told her that we never discussed such plans. And even if we wanted to, we didn't have the budget for it. She told us it wasn't fair that we paid for her sister, but would not do the same for her. I tried to explain the situation, telling her that in the long run, we spend twice as much on her and her brother as we ever did on Sarah. However, she insisted that Sarah was already well off, noting that Sarah and her husband had paid off their house and were doing extremely well financially. I told her that this had nothing to do with how much money her sister had. This was us finally being able to do something for our oldest child, who had to sacrifice so much because we had her at such a young age. She didn't take it well, left angry, and won't speak to us. My wife thinks we should maybe take out a small loan and give her the money because she isn't used to not talking to her kids and is sad she's being left out of the wedding preparations. She is even afraid of us not getting invited to the wedding, but I have put my foot down and won't budge because she is not entitled to our money. Now, even Sarah is saying that this is getting out of hand and even offered to help pay half the money. But personally, I'm at a point where I'd rather burn the 50K than give it to her. Sarah and my wife think that this is not worth destroying our family over, but I think that giving in will only make her more entitled in the long run. Now, for the comments before reading the update, not the actual. One child got a funded education and one child got a wedding. I think a college girl is probably an entitled brat because she got the higher ticket item. 100% agree. You couldn't give her the money for her schooling, so you gave it to her after. Jessica got the money for school. Sarah had to pay all her schooling off herself. Not the asshole, and I, Jessica, is so set on having the money, then let her take out a loan and pay it back like Sarah did for her schooling. Jessica's being a spoiled brat, and I get your wife wanting to keep contact with her, but if the only way your kid will speak to you, if you give them $50K, then there's other issues there. Does she even know how much college costs? Not the asshole, and sticking to your guns doesn't reward this temper tantrum. Also totally random, but I'm kind of disappointed the son wasn't named Parker just because my brain instantly wanted to put that after the first 2 names LOL. My mom once pulled me aside and apologized for giving my sister money for her wedding and money towards her down payment. I was like, Mom, she went to a state school, other sis, and I went to 2 of the 5 most expensive schools in the country at the same time. You paid out of pocket and we know you had to remortgage to do it. There is certainly no slight to us. If OP caves, he needs to be prepared to stump up for son's wedding too. Jessica needs to get over herself. She's a grown woman, not a child. She should know how much college costs and how much her student loans aren't because OP for her. Sarah paid her cost plus loan interest. That is going to be a lot more than she got from OP. Now, for the update. Thank you all for the fantastic comments and personal messages from my last post. After reading the comments, I felt even more convinced that I was in the right, so I sat down with my wife to talk. Following many of your suggestions, I showed her the post and asked her to read it. She wasn't happy, especially when she saw how many people had read it, but she was also really curious. This has been on her mind a lot lately, and she wanted to know what all of you were thinking. She had a few issues with my comments. She believes that when I said I would rather burn the money, it indicates I need to change my approach to problem solving. While it might be easy for people on the internet to suggest that parents cut off contact with their child, she's not ready to lose her little girl. Additionally, she thinks my statement about doing my duty and wanting to take care of myself comes across as selfish and is not something a parent should say. She believes there is a reasonable compromise. Instead of giving her the full $50,000, we can offer her half for the wedding. This way, we can cover most of the expenses from our savings, borrow the rest from Sarah if needed, and pay her back within a year. I told her right away that I was not going to do that. I told her that we could separate our finances and that she could return to work full-time to help Jessica pay for the wedding. However, I made it clear that I was done. As selfish as it may seem, I don't feel obligated to Jessica anymore, and I want to enjoy my life while I still can. She replied, as she always does, that I am stubborn and she would take that step if it meant keeping the family together. I told her it was fine, but not to come to me complaining about her health when she went back to work full-time. A couple of days ago, she came to me and said that she agreed with my proposal. We made a plan to open a joint bank account, where we would deposit our monthly expenses. After that, we can each use our personal money however we like. We decided on an amount to keep in our savings account for emergencies and agreed we split the remaining funds 50/50. I even agreed to cover 60% of the money needed for our joint expenses. This is the first time we will have more than one bank account, so I'm a bit nervous about how it will turn out. I also believe she mentioned talking to her boss about working more hours, but I want to avoid getting involved in that discussion. I spoke with Sarah and expressed my concerns about giving Jessica any money, which I believe is a bad idea. However, Sarah insists that she wants to help. She mentioned that while she agrees with my viewpoint, she doesn't want their mom to return to work full-time. She clarified that her decision to help was aimed at supporting their mom, not Jessica. I told her that it was her money and she could do as she pleased, but like her mom, I wouldn't involve myself in the situation any further. Right before I wrote this post, I sent an email to Jessica expressing my feelings for her. I clarified where I stood and mentioned that she could decide how involved I would be in her wedding. I don't expect a reply, but now I'll have to wait and see what happens. Edit, I realize now that I didn't explain something clearly. My wife wants to pay $25,000 for the wedding, which she and Sarah have agreed to split. She believes this is a reasonable compromise, but I disagree with her. Story 2. My boyfriend, male 24, and I, female 24, have too much sex and I can't outlet it anymore. How do I explain it to him that it exhausts me, and how do I negotiate new intimacy with him? Original post. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years now. He is my first relationship and even my first kiss. We met at university during activities, became friends, and then started dating. He is so polite and kind and also really sweet and smart as well. We can talk about our common interests and hobbies for hours on end. Since I was a virgin in the relationship, he was not. We took it slow and only had sex when I was ready, which was about 8 months after we became a couple. After that, we had sex about once every 1 or 2 weeks, depending on if we found the time during our studies and if we were exhausted. Sometimes during exam time, we had it once a month or every 5 weeks. But slowly, he started to initiate more and more. At first, I didn't mind and loved the attention he was giving me. I felt attractive and beautiful, which helped my body image issues a lot. Soon, it turned into him asking for it every single day, sometimes twice a day during weekends or if we have a slow day with little work and studies. A month ago, we went on a vacation together and he basically jumped on me as soon as we got into our hotel room. We barely got to do anything as he wanted to have sex 2, if not 3 times a day. I came back so exhausted from the vacation, and I even started saying no to him eating out or role play or switching in position just to get it over with sooner. At this point, sex does nothing for me anymore. The mere action and physical stimulation feels enjoyable, yes, but just sex without anything else just isn't worth the time or effort for me. I need a story and emotion with it, lots of dirty talk and role-playing in some hot situations. I know that takes time and effort to prepare, but it gets me going wildly. But even if I could have that every day, I wouldn't want it. It's literally physically too exhausting. Also, I feel like too much sex kind of destroys the magic. I know that he takes a lot emotionally and sexually out of sex. It's making him feel loved and desired, and I don't want to take it from him, but I actually caught myself not doing any makeup anymore and not wearing tight or short clothing, but baggy ones, instead to maybe deter him from wanting sex so much. Now, for the update. I spent a lot of time reading through everyone's replies and looking inwards about how I feel. I gathered my thoughts and spent a few days making a list of what I wanted to say when we had a big conversation. On a weekend when we had planned to spend the day together, I sat him down and told him the following points. I love him to the moon and back and want to show him that I love him, make him feel desired, loved, and appreciated. Having so much sex with such frequency is physically exhausting to me, which causes me to avoid sex, and even sex I enjoy because I don't have enough energy and motivation to do it. This also causes me to orgasm not as often anymore. I also need time to physically recover before it may even start to become painful. I feel like sex has become the single defining aspect of our relationship, and many other parts like doing activities together, romantic dates, just talking and cuddling have taken a backseat. I also feel exhausted emotionally and underappreciated from giving as much as I can, which I gladly do for the people I love, while little comes back from the other side of the relationship. I then proceeded to explain the things I like during sex and what makes me go wild, hoping to show him that I still want to have sex with him. I also made a few more compliments just to keep the vibe positive and because I meant it. He reacted pretty well, all things considered. He listened and let me finish, but asked for a little time to think about it. Obviously, I gladly agreed. We spend the rest of the day together without him initiating once. At the end of the day, he said that he wants me to enjoy sex just as much as he does and that he loves me. I was really hopeful for the next week and a half. We spent our time together like usual, and he asked for sex about 1/2 as often as before our talk. We even had days without sex at all. He also started to ask, do you want to have sex with me? Instead of physically initiating like he did before, like touching me somewhere, hugging me from behind and similar things. He also stopped asking for pictures of me, and when he did it were just selfies. And I was so happy that I even took the initiative once, and he seemingly loved it when I asked for sex. Then one day he sat me down with a stern look and said that he hated what this relationship has turned into. To him, it feels like we are now just roommates or platonic friends instead of lovers. He told me that the one time I initiated after he was overjoyed to finally fuck me again, his heart was broken because I suddenly wasn't as submissive as usually. I asked to be eaten out and was on top with some more dominant, dirty talk, and that all of that is not what he signed up for. He doesn't want to walk on eggshells waiting for me when I am finally in the mood, but has what he deserves in the relationship. Basically, he gave me an ultimatum. Either we return to how it was before the talk starting right now, or he leaves me. I guess who doesn't have a boyfriend anymore? I spent the last few days bawling my eyes out and eating lots of E-cream and watching some shitty shows. What he said hurt me a lot, and I do not love him anymore, but still the feeling of loss and sadness is all too real. He was my first relationship, and for the past 2 years, he was my entire world. No, I have to gather up the broken shards he left behind. Comments OP Replies. Comment 1. And I have an update if you want more information. I have a pretty high libido as well, and I love good sensual sex, and I want it quite often as I can go multiple times a week. But it was so often that we basically didn't do anything else besides it, and he was emotionally checked out when the possibility of sex wasn't on the table. It was so much that I was physically uncomfortable. Not to mention his really bad behavior once I told him I wanted a break sometimes. I had difficulty saying no because I wanted to make him feel loved that way until I realized that he just wants to take everything he wants from me without giving any emotional connection, romance, or care for me as a person. I hate that people throw around this sexual incompatibility argument because if he said he wanted someone he can fuck at least 2 a day, but he shouted at me, demanded we do it how he likes it, and that I apologize for ruining everything by voicing my concerns for my well-being. He also said that he deserves to just take everything he wants from me. So please keep that in mind when you do your judgment. Yes, we are not together anymore. I cut him off after his scary tantrum. Comment 2. Thank you for your empathy and for the added context. And I know that my update gave more information, but that's also because I didn't see a lot of the stuff he did to me and didn't do for me after that tantrum. Until that point, I wanted to give everything to him because I was head over heels for him until he showed me that he didn't feel that way back. I get it. I like sex just as much as the next gal. It's just that I have a pretty broad spectrum of frequency I would be okay with depending on what my partner feels like. Sex once a week or 2 weeks, totally fine as long as the other intimacy is fulfilled. Sex every other day, great as well as long as it's an equal relationship and we both get what we want and non-sexual intimacy isn't pushed to the side, which sadly happened to me. In the end, I not only felt really sore and exhausted, but also used and reduced my body. If we broke up because of sexual incompatibility, that would still hurt, but we could part ways amicably. This way, he just hurt me for no reason. Comment 3. And I get that sexual incompatibility can be a huge deal breaker for people, but firstly, it's not like we suddenly were not having any sex anymore. In those 10 days between our 2 conversations, we still had sex about 5 to 6 times, plus making out, plus some other sexual stuff besides full-on PIV. Also, it's the way he treated me. He shouted at me, demanded we return to normal by having sex as often as he wants again, no matter my feelings and with me being submissive. He also demanded an apology and an apology session. So much could be inferred. But before all that, for the last weeks and months, he left me emotionally starved. He only looked out for his sexual gratification while I had to cherish the few little drops of romance, friendship, and companionship. When it didn't involve sex or could lead to sex, he was kind of emotionally distant. Cute dates, cuddling, intimacy without sexuality, and hobbies together was few and far in between. I don't fault him for not wanting sex. I fault him for how he treated me and how little he was able to compromise. Story 3. Original post. 12 years ago, I was 36 female, was engaged, and about to get married to Carl, fake name. Everything in my life seemed perfect until I found out my fiance was having an affair with a new hire of his job called Camilla, 20 female. Both of them were in serious relationships. I broke off the engagement with Carl as soon as I found out and told Camilla's boyfriend about the cheating. Well, it was hard for me, but I moved on after months of therapy and the help of my friends and family. Now I am married to Henry, 41, male, my amazing husband and father of our 4 children, 9 female, 7 male, 4 male, and 4 female. I moved to the other side of the country years ago, and I never thought about my ex-fiance or the cheating again. My husband works in a law firm. Last year, they hired a new lawyer, Daniel, 34 male, who moved with his family to live in our area. He and my husband became very good friends as they have similar interests and personalities. Henry asked me to invite Daniel's family to our house to help with adjusting to the new city and job. When Daniel came to my house for a playdate for our kids, his kids are 4 male and 2 female, he introduced us to his wife, Cam, 30 female. Well, Cam was Camilla. I really didn't know how to react when I recognized her. I had the impression that she also recognized me. Our husbands didn't understand why everything seemed so tense, and we pretended to not know each other and made failed attempts of small talk. After an hour, Cam made up an excuse and our family left. Henry noticed my behavior and asked me what was happening. I told him everything. He already knew about my past with Carl and the affair. Later that day, I received a text from Camilla begging me to not tell Daniel about our past. I read the message and didn't reply, but I decided to not say anything and mind my business. This was not my problem anymore. After a week of silence, Daniel shows up at our doorstep looking very agitated. He talked to my husband alone, and after, Henry asked me to tell Daniel my version of everything. Like my husband, Daniel realized something weird happened at our meeting and spent the week trying to get answers from his wife. She refused to tell him what happened and then tried to say I was her ex-boyfriend's side chick and that's why we were so tense. Daniel didn't buy her story and they had a massive fight. After the fight, he realized I was the one that could tell him the truth. And I did tell him everything after he asked. I even showed him the text message Camilla sent me. I didn't feel the need to sugarcoat things since Camilla was out there telling lies about me. Daniel was in complete shock because cheating is a trigger for him. His father cheated on his mom for years and left the family for his mistress, would hate him, hate cheaters. Camilla knew about this since their first date. Daniel left our house looking defeated, and in the same day I received a call from Camilla accusing B of being a revengeful Bia. She said I was trying to destroy her life. I don't think I was wrong for telling the truth, but this happened last year and I received calls and random messages from people close to Camilla saying I am an asshole for exposing Camilla's past to her husband. Am I the asshole here? Now for the update. I posted this on the Am I the Asshole subreddit since this happened a year ago and some people want to know what happened. Since then I just decided to post this on my page. First, this is not a fake story. The only thing that's fake are the names. I am not AI either. Second, I don't think cheaters must be punished forever. While I would probably never want to be close friends with Camilla, after the initial shock I would have no issues being civil with her. I don't think she deserves to live through hell because she was awful years ago. I also don't think she was the worst person. Carl definitely was. He was the one who's about to marry me, but she was a willing part of the affair and she knew me from their office. Also, everybody there knew Carl was living with me and we were engaged. Third, Camilla got my number from Daniel's phone. I have a pretty uncommon last name and my name is not popular either. Daniel got my number from me. Henry gave me his contact to set up a dinner date to introduce our families. I texted him. We already have met sometimes in the office and at my house when he came by with Henry. Daniel texted me back about setting up our plans for the kids' play date, and that's that. My husband didn't give Camilla my number. At the time this all happened, my husband had seen her just once while at the office with Daniel. The fact that Camilla had access to her husband's phone is not weird to me. Her actions were. The update. Daniel and Camilla are not divorced. After leaving our house, Daniel stayed at a hotel for a while. Then he got back to his house and they started doing couples therapy. The harassment, though calls and texts, lasted over a month. Henry was about to send a cease and desist when he decided to talk to Daniel about this. Daniel handled it. What I know through Henry is that most of Camilla's flying monkeys didn't know the full story, and when Daniel set things straight, they stopped. Camilla emailed me months later, apologizing. I accepted her apology, but we are not close and I don't feel like her words were genuine. Most likely she wants to save her marriage. Now, talking about their marriage, Daniel and I talked some months after this at a party in my house, and I told him that I felt terrible for my part in their marital problems, and he reassured me. Daniel said that they were already having issues before we met. It seems like she wasn't happy about moving here and leaving her family on the other side of the country. Also, they were having money problems because their old state has a higher cost of living. Since Camilla left work after she got pregnant with their second child, they had less money and cutting costs on their lifestyle was making them fight. The move to our state made sense because it was a better position with a good raise. I don't know much else about it, just that recently Henry told me that Daniel was depressed after a big fight they had about Thanksgiving. Camilla wanted to travel to their old state to stay with her family, and Daniel wanted to visit his mother, who lives closer. Everybody in the office knows about their fight since Daniel asked to meet us at a coworker's place. Daniel told Henry directly that he would start divorce proceedings because in their last fight, Camilla was talking about taking the kids and moving back closer to her parents. He said that she will not have full custody of his kids. That's basically all I know, and I don't really know if Daniel will go through divorce.